When most people think of Kion's roar, they picture this noble, Disney-approved superpower. A roar passed down from the Lion Guard elders, meant to protect the Pride Lands, keep balance, save the day. It's framed as majestic, honorable, but when you pay attention to what Kion does with it, the more it feels less like guardian of the Pride Lands and more like walking natural disaster. And that's what we're diving into today, the 14 craziest things Kion has ever done with the roar. The stuff that makes you wonder if Disney was low-key, telling us his roar was maybe a curse. Fans love to point at Ushari's venom as the reason Kion spiraled out of control. Snake bites, scars, all that. But if you actually rewatch closely, you'll notice the roar itself started to change. In the beginning, it was golden, majestic, almost holy. But later, jagged streaks of crimson cut through the light. The sound shifted too, less noble, more distorted, like something alive was breaking inside of him. And then the lions of the past, the very ancestors who gave him this gift, started to show up less and less, almost as if they weren't sure he still deserved it. What we saw there wasn't just an upgrade in strength. It was the roar slipping into darker corruption that mirrored Kion's own struggle. But I'm not spilling the full truth just yet. You can drop your guesses in the comments till then. To get there, we've got to walk through the madness first. All 14 times Kion unleashed the roar in ways so extreme, you'll question whether it was a gift or a curse. Only after that can we circle back and uncover why the roar began twisting in the first place. Kion once roared so hard, he accidentally brought Scar back from the dead. Not as a cute family memory either, Scar literally returned as a ghost, ready to wage war. And the worst part? Kion didn't even realize what he had done. Yanya and the hyenas baited him, pushed his buttons, and the roar did the rest. 1 second, he's trying to protect his sister Kiara. The next, boom, evil Uncle Scar has respawned with a vengeance. And if resurrecting your evil uncle wasn't bad enough, Kion's roar also decided to take up geology. There was this moment when Zazu was trapped in a cage, rolling toward a pit of molten lava. Now, most people would completely panic. Not Kion. He roared so hard he literally parted the lava like it was the Red Sea. Cage safe, Zazu fine. But seriously, who just casually tells magma where to move with their voice? Somewhere out there, firefighters are shaking their heads. But it wasn't just the ground he bent to his will. The roar also had a thing for water. Remember that zebra stampede heading straight into a river about to plunge over a waterfall? Kion didn't rush in to drag them out one by one. Nope, he went full Poseidon. With one roar, the entire waterfall reversed course, like gravity itself decided to cut him a favor. The zebras lived, but the landscape was forever rewritten, and if earth and water weren't enough, Kion eventually figured out he had dominion over the skies too. Thanks to Zira poking at his weaknesses, Kion unlocked a new level, weather control, rain on demand, storms on command. Dry season? No problem. One roar, and the heavens opened up. Sounds heroic. Until you realize if this kid's in a bad mood, you're getting a personal thunderstorm dropped on your house. Of course, if you've got the sky in your control, you might as well take care of fire while you're at it. When wildfires broke out in the Pride Lands, Kion didn't bother with buckets or waiting for rain clouds. He just roared, and the flames disappeared, like gone, erased. Somewhere in the distance, Smokey the Bear was probably shaking his head going, yeah, that's cheating. And if wiping out fire wasn't enough, Kion eventually came full circle with Scar. Remember, he's the one who accidentally summoned his uncle back in the first place. So naturally, he had to be the one to face him. But Kion didn't win by roaring louder or harder. Scar tried to bait him, tried to push him into unleashing that destructive side, but Kion resisted. And in that rare moment of restraint, the great lions of the past stepped in and finished Scar themselves. Funny enough, one of Kion's strongest moments came not from using the roar, but from refusing to. Of course, that level of control didn't last long. With venom still coursing through his body and doubts clouding his mind, Kion slipped. His best friend Bunga, loyal, goofy, and endlessly irritating, pushed too far, and instead of keeping calm, Kion let the roar loose. And it was not at a villain, but at his friend Bunga. The poor guy got launched like a furry little cannonball. And sure, we've all wanted to punt an annoying friend across the room at some point, But Kion actually did it. This was the first clear sign Scar wasn't the only battle Kion was fighting. The real enemy was inside him, and that inner storm showed itself again when Kion squared off with some Komodo dragons. His temper snapped, and with one roar, he shoved back the entire ocean. For a heartbeat, it looked like a miracle. The sea just vanished. But oceans don't stay gone, and when the water rushed back in as a massive tidal wave, the miracle nearly turned into mass drowning. It was the kind of moment that makes you realize Kion's roar is reckless when fueled by anger. Not that he always lost control. Later, Kion managed to channel the roar deliberately, parting the sea with precision instead of rage. His team walked safely across the seabed while walls of water towered on either side, straight out of a storybook. And yeah, it was amazing, but also unsettling, because when a lion cub is casually pulling off biblical miracles, you start to wonder if the line between protector and God is getting a little too thin. But if you thought things calmed down after that, the Tree of Life arc proved otherwise. When the Night Pride confronted him, Kion's temper flared again. In the heat of it, he unleashed the roar straight at Balio, Ronnie's brother, and sent him flying. Imagine meeting your girlfriend's family for the first time, and your instinct is to blast her brother into the horizon. Not exactly the ideal in-law introduction. And worse, it almost cost him everything he had come to the Tree of Life to find. And yet, just when things seemed at their darkest, Kion swung back into sheer absurdity. In the middle of a battle, instead of targeting enemies, he roared at his own teammates. The result? Bunga and Beshti were blasted into the sky like living projectiles. Yes, we got an airborne honey badger, and even better, a flying hippo. The fact that this tactic actually worked is less impressive than the thought that somewhere, an animator had to seriously sketch out hippo in flight and treat it like a normal storyboard note. But the comedy didn't last. Moments later, Kion unleashed a tornado. Not a gust of wind, not a storm cloud, a full-blown cyclone that scooped enemies up and spun them around like rag dolls. A roar that controls rain is impressive. A roar that weaponizes storms? That's nightmare fuel. And as if controlling tornadoes wasn't enough, Kion went bigger, literally. When his team's path was blocked by a canyon too narrow for Beshta, he didn't stop to problem solve. He just roared and moved 2 mountains out of the way. Not pebbles, not boulders, mountains. At that point, it stopped being about crazy roar moments and started being about Kion casually editing geography every time he raised his voice, which brings us to the ultimate flex. Back in the Pride Lands, when it came time to prove whether his Lion Guard or Vitani's truly deserved the mantle, Kion didn't settle the score with words. Instead, he roared and lifted Pride Rock itself into the air. Yes, the Pride Rock, the heart of the Lion King legacy, floating like it weighed nothing. It was a declaration that he had mastered the roar. Epic? Absolutely, but also more than a little unnerving. Because if Kion could raise the very symbol of his kingdom just to make a point, what else could he do if he ever stopped holding back? And that's where we need to pause. On the surface, Disney gave us the neat explanation. Kion was bitten, the venom messed him up, and the Tree of Life became his healing journey. Simple, tidy, wrapped with a bow. But if you look closer, the pieces don't fit. Snake venom doesn't spike your temper or fuel aggression. It weakens you. And yet, after Ushari's bite, Kion was more angrier than just weaker. His patience thinned, his control slipped, and his power turned sharper and darker. The scar did not change his behavior, but actually it revealed his true nature. The truth is, the warning signs were always there. Even back in Season 1, you can spot the moments, the way Kion smirked when enemies cowered, how satisfied he looked when he realized just how overwhelming the roar really was. These weren't throwaway animation quirks. They were glimpses of what was brewing underneath. Simba noticed too. That quiet, watchful stare he gave his son wasn't random. He'd grown up in Scar's shadow. He knew the signs, the flashes of anger, the justifications, the pull of power as the easy solution. And now he was watching history repeat itself, this time in his own child. And along with Kion, his roar itself began to reflect that change. What once glowed golden with the voices of the great lions of the past started bleeding with jagged streaks of crimson. The sound grew harsher, darker, like it was no longer just power, but corruption bleeding through. Even the ancestors began to step back. In the beginning, their ghostly forms appeared every time Kion roared, lending strength and guidance. But by season 3, they were fading, showing up less and less, until there was nothing, almost as if they were withdrawing their blessing, uncertain if Kion was still worthy to carry it. Like this video, if you're still alive after that chaos, bonus points if you screamed. That silence raises the hardest question of all. What really happened when Kion left for the Tree of Life? Officially, it was a quest to heal. A noble path. But if you listen to Simba and Rafiki before his departure, their words sound different. They didn't say return soon. They said take all the time you need. Rafiki even warned some journeys have no destination. That doesn't sound like medicine. That sounds like exile. A careful way of sending Kion away, not only for his sake, but to protect the Pride Lands from what he might become. Simba was a king making an impossible choice: safeguard his child or safeguard his kingdom. So in the end, was Simba right? Did he prevent another Scar from rising? Or did he betray his son by sending him away under the guise of a cure? If you want to see more videos like this, hit subscribe so you don't miss out. I'll catch up on the next one.